Good evening and welcome, everybody. Thank you for taking the time out of your night and joining us for this public hearing tonight. This is a hearing from Marina Basin, Saugatuck Township and Allegan County. My name is Ryan Blazik. I'm with EGLE's Environmental Support Division. I'm just going to be helping to moderate this public hearing tonight for this application. Before we get too far, though, I just have a couple things to go through. This is what our agenda is going to look like. Just going through a quick introduction right now. The big thing to keep in mind, there's actually going to be two parts to this public hearing tonight. We're going to start off with an informational session where the applicant has an opportunity to present information on the proposed project. And we're going to follow that up with a question and answer session. We'll be able to ask a question or questions on the application and project. That will go up until 7 o'clock. At 7 o'clock, we are going to start the hearing portion. That's where you'll be able to make an official comment for the record on this project and application. Everybody will have an opportunity to do that, and we'll explain how to do that a little bit later on. And we're also going to finish up with who to contact if you have further questions. All right, in case you haven't joined us for a hearing like this before, a couple things to keep in mind. All lines are going to be muted during the hearing, so you'll be able to hear us, everything we're saying, but we won't be able to hear you. However, you will have that opportunity to make your statement for the record. Before then, however, you can submit your questions at any time using the Q&A box in your Zoom toolbar. If you have those questions, we're going to save those questions for the Q&A session that's directly after the presentation. And then we also are recording this hearing, so the recording will be posted on our YouTube channel in closed caption in a couple days. All right, so with that, I would like to invite our EGLE staff who are on the line to turn their cameras and mics on and introduce themselves.
Thanks, Ryan. This is John Byhigh. I work for the Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy out of the Kalamazoo District Office. I'll be acting as the hearings officer tonight.
Good evening. My name is Jason Combs. I'm an analyst with Water Resources Division out of the Kalamazoo District Office. I'm assisting John in the review of this permit application.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kyle Alexander. I'm the Field Operations Manager for the Water Resources Division and was previously the District Supervisor in Kalamazoo.
All right, thank you all for providing those introductions.
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, so I was just going to touch briefly on what the project is, real overview, high-level overview, excuse me. So this is the marina basin that's been proposed, along with some other improvements to the property or development of the property. The basin would be connected to the Kalamazoo River, which is at the bottom of the screen here. It would extend approximately 1,500 feet inland. It has a bit of a dogleg in it. It's about 6.54 acres of direct impact that would be turned into waterway. And it is for private homeowner use, either around the basin. You can see the lot lines around the basin or for other homes in the area.
All right, perfect. Yeah, thanks for that description, John. All right, now we're going to give the applicants an opportunity to talk about the project. So what we'll do, we're going to see if we can find the applicants in the audience and unmute them and allow them to provide their presentation. It looks like Carl, you're on the line. I have your presentation here. Well, I got a few slides. You're welcome to start talking about the project if you like, and then I can switch slides when you'd like.
Thank you, Ryan. Just checking to make sure you can hear me all right.
Yep, we can.
Okay, thanks. John, thanks for the slide showing the overview of the project that's at issue here. Given where this project is and the fact that this is the second permit go round on this, I don't know that there's anybody on the call that really needs us to explain what the project is or what's intended. So I guess rather than taking people's time to do and doing that, I guess there's two things that I wanted to share about the project on behalf of the applicant. The first is to just show people again where this boat basin is located. And the second is to describe what North Shore has done to ensure that it's developing this property in a reasonable manner. So Ryan, if you're the one that has the control of the slides, thank you. This shows what the property looks like today, relatively close to today, although there are quite a few more homes along the lake and the channel. The boat basin will be located inside the looped roadway. You can see the outline on the ground. So this is not a wooded area. It's not steep slopes. It's not wetlands. Now, Ryan, if you can move to the next two slides and just kind of stay a few seconds on each one and perhaps back and forth. If you look at these two slides, you can see what this area where the boat.
You there, Carl? I think we lost you.
Are you there?
Oh, there you are. Yep.
Okay, so I have a my mic is on my webcam, and when my webcam goes to sleep because of you guys aren't showing video, the camera also does as well. So I will try and keep it awake if I can. So these pictures show what the area looked like in the not so recent, not so far past. It was an industrial boat manufacturing facility. The factory was quite large. There were a number of small outbuildings on the property, as well as an old house. This is the site of the boat basin, not a pristine, untouched sand dune ecosystem. And there's two slides there. I'm not sure if you rotated through them. I wasn't looking at them, but that's the only slides that we had. So you can move on or put those away if you'd like.
Yeah, there's good ones.
Okay, there's the second one. Thank you for that. And so that boat well shows really pretty closely where the new boat basin is going to start, directly in the footprint of where this industrial site used to be. When North Shore acquired this property, it made a commitment to develop it in a reasonable and balanced manner, and to do so responsibly. North Shore has, from our perspective, succeeded in this, and that's evidence in three ways. One is, I would say it's self-evident to anyone that's willing to set aside personal biases and agendas and consider what is actually being proposed on this property as a whole. 50 home sites on over 300 acres. Now, tonight we're only talking about a portion of that, but just to give the context of what North Shore is doing and its commitment to responsible developing. 50 home sites on over 300 acres. Second, when North Shore was reviewing, submitting the PUD to the township hired an independent planner to review the plan. That independent planner reviewed the PUD, including the harbor cluster, and applauded North Shore for its conservation-based approach to design of the development, noting in particular that the harbor cluster, which is what we're talking about tonight, is located on the interior of the property in a location that was previously developed, which we're looking at those photos right now, and in a layout that leaves undisturbed the steep slopes and the sand dunes that surround it. And thirdly, as evidence of the responsible development that North Shore has undertaken, when Richard Shaw reviewed the plans on behalf of the Coastal Alliance, he agreed with the placement of the harbor cluster, and quite frankly, even the channel and the lake clusters. The alternative plans that he drew up placed the harbor cluster in the exact same footprint as North Shore's proposed plans. There is a consensus that development of the areas in which North Shore is developing, that those are the proper areas in this property to develop. Under this approach, this conservation-based approach, North Shore let the contours of the landscape dictate the location of the development, with a goal of preserving as much of the property in its natural state as possible. And North Shore, since acquiring the property in 2017, has continued in that endeavor to develop it responsibly by engaging in more due diligence and research than any other developer in Allegan County has done, to my knowledge. North Shore hired historic and experts from the University of Illinois to conduct cultural resources studies of the entire mouth of the Kalamazoo River so that it could better understand its history. North Shore retained a team of archaeologists from Ball State University to conduct archaeological surveys of the property. These surveys included ground penetrating radar, taking an image of what's underground, as well as excavation, all with the goal of ensuring that no significant historical artifacts or features would be destroyed during construction. And out of an abundance of caution, North Shore has, in cooperation with the Army Corps of Engineers, put in place both a monitoring and a mitigation plan to ensure that any artifacts that are discovered during excavation are documented, analyzed, and preserved. North Shore has retained a zoology expert from the University of Michigan to survey the property for threatened or endangered bird species. North Shore also engaged a team from the Michigan Natural Features Inventory at Michigan State to conduct a rare species and natural features assessment. Both of these surveys concluded that no threatened or endangered species will be harmed by the development. North Shore retained biologists and marina design experts to advise it on the best practices regarding lake sturgeon and water quality, both during construction and in the ongoing operation of the boat basin. The result is a construction process and an operating plan that will cause no negative impacts to either lake sturgeon or water quality. North Shore worked hand in hand with a nationally recognized team of hydrologists to ensure that the boat basin will not have any long-term impacts to the interdunal wetlands in the area. This will be accomplished by sealing off the boat basin from the surrounding groundwater through the use of steel sheeting and a clay liner. North Shore also collaborated with the same team of hydrologists, with dewatering and excavation experts, and with wetlands experts to devise a dewatering and excavation plan that will ensure that the interdunal wetlands will not be negatively impacted even for a short time during excavation. This will be accomplished by excavating the boat basin in 3 sections, while at the same time artificially recharging the groundwater around the entire boat basin during excavation. The result is that the water level fluctuation in the area of the wetlands, if any, will be minuscule compared to the dramatic fluctuations that occur naturally in this area. North Shore worked with Edgewater Resources, a well-respected marine engineering firm, to design the development in such a way that the impact to boat traffic on the river will be minimal. All of the vessel maneuvering that accompanies docking will occur in the boat basin rather than the navigational channel. The intersection of the boat basin and the Kalamazoo River will be substantially less congested than the narrower parts of the Kalamazoo River near downtown Saugatuck, which has a significant amount of boating activity and docking activity that occurs there without a problem every day. The intersection of the boat basin and the Kalamazoo River will, quite frankly, be more boater friendly in terms of dimensions and boat traffic than many nearby harbors along Lake Michigan. In short, North Shore has engaged experts in a wide variety of areas to ensure that this development will not negatively impact the environment, the natural resources of the area, or the community's use and enjoyment of those resources. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you for providing that presentation information, Carl. Now we're going to move into kind of the question and answer part of tonight. You feel free to ask a question if you'd like. There are 2 ways to do that. You can either submit it using the Q&A box that you see at the bottom of your screen. Just select that, type your question in, or you can raise your hand. There should be a raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen. You can click that, it'll raise your hand. I'll call on you in turn. If you have a question, we'll unmute you. You can unmute yourself and then ask your question verbally. And we'll move on to the next question. Or you can type #2. If you're on the phone, you can type #2 on your receiver. If we have anybody calling in, that will raise your hand in Zoom. I'll call on you using your last 4 digits of your phone number. And then you can unmute yourself using your receiver and ask your question. Just a couple quick things. So just so you're aware, this is not the part where you would make a comment for the record on this project. This is the part where you would ask a question. It's a question and answer session. So this is where we're trying to get your questions asked before we move on to that part where you can make a statement about the project. So we're going to reserve for questions tonight. Now, it looks like I have a raised hand.
There's a couple questions that got moved into the answered box, Ryan, while Carl was talking, that I can really quickly speak to. And
Yeah,
I'll save
let's start there.
they're easy questions, so I'll save the hard ones for Jason and John. The first question in short was asking why EGLE's not reviewing this proposal under Part 637, the sand dune mining regulation. My understanding of the project is that most of the sand will be staying on site and wouldn't require a permit under 637. But everyone on the call today works for the Water Resource Division, so we're reviewing the application for Part 353, which is critical dune, and 301, inland lakes and streams. So if you do have questions specific to 637, I would encourage you to reach out to the Oil, Gas, and Minerals Division about those questions. The other question was, somebody was asking how they could understand the difference between the first application and this application. If you go to My Enviro, you can look at both applications, the one that we're, and there's going to be links provided throughout the night on how you can get to this application online. But you can get online and download the application material, review it for yourself. But I thought I'd also let Carl quickly address that if you would like, just to touch on what the differences are between this application and the previous project. Carl, would you mind taking that?
I can speak to that a little bit, Kyle, if you want me to.
Okay, go ahead, John.
Carl's not available right now. So the primary difference is that this application now is significantly different from the construction phasing standpoint. They've made some changes, primarily going from 1 large excavation to 3 phased excavations with some groundwater discharge piping going on and pumping going on during the dewatering process. That's the primary difference, the way I would see it. I guess the other difference you might see in the documents are that they added the 36-inch circulation pipe to move water from the river through the basin. That was previously a separate permit that EGLE reviewed and issued back in like 2018 or so. So it's similar, very similar, but dimensions of the project are basically the same. There is some work that's already been done under the previous permit that we issued, in that they cut the trees down this area and they did some rough grading.
All right, thanks, John. Yeah, and thanks for covering those 2 questions, Kyle. Yeah, we may, if we get a ton of questions in here, we may be answering those individually, but we'll try to ask them at this time verbally. Looks like we have Mary Hill, who has her hand raised. We're going to unmute you, Mary, and let you ask your question verbally. So Mary, it looks like you're unmuted on our end. You can unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Thank you very much. And Carl, I just wanted to say thank you for your presentation and explanation of what you're doing and the crew at EGLE. Really appreciate that. My name is Mary Hill. I'm here on as a private citizen. So I'm not going to cite where I work, but I do have a professional engineering degree in engineering, in environmental engineering, and have been recognized globally and nationally and globally for various professional accomplishments, including I'm a member of the National Academy of Engineering. So just to tell you a little bit about where I'm coming from, I have a bunch of questions, but right now I just wanted to focus on something I may also include later, but I thought I'd go ahead and introduce the topic now, thinking that in this less formal setting, I might be able to get questions answered and not need to put it in later. But so the question comes as to how much material is going to be excavated and where it's going. And my understanding on those questions is that the material being excavated is sand. I don't know if there's any requirement for a chemical analysis of the water within that sand or the sand itself, and that it's to be deposited. It's quite a large volume and would be deposited on a 5-acre site elsewhere on the property, but some distance. It's not adjacent to this. And so first of all, just I thought I'd get it in, as I say, a less formal feedback on those observations.
I'll see if Carl's with us. I think that would be a good question for the applicant to
That'd be
address.
great.
If Carl can hear us now.
I
Carl,
can.
okay, do you want to take that one?
Yes, and I don't know that that I'm the right person to get into engineering numbers, Mary. It sounds like you and I would talk, and I perhaps wouldn't even understand what you're talking about. I'm an attorney, not an engineer. So I guess I would refer you to the permit application. There's a lot of information in there, and I'm certain that the volume of sand being removed is in there, if that was one of your primary questions.
I have that. I found that.
All right. I think your second question was, where is it going? And the sand, yes, is staying on site on property owned by North Shore. Whether you call it adjacent or not, it's not being scooped up with an excavator and deposited still within the reach of the excavator. It's being trucked to another portion of the North Shore property for use there.
For use there, could you go into, is it not just being piled up and stored there, but for use there?
Correct. So there is currently on the property an old sand mine from the 1940s, 50s. Don't quote me on those exact time frame, but where a side of a sand dune was essentially cut out and eliminated at the end of Dugout Road, hence the name Dugout Road. And the use of this sand will be to restore the natural contours of the area that had been previously mined.
Huh. That's interesting. I'll have to, it'll be nice to get a topographic map of the current situation. And I will say I've hiked those dunes since I was about 8. So, and I'm now in my 60s. So there's certainly a lot of swales. There's a certain amount of topography back there.
Hey, Mary, I want to make sure I get to some other questions here because we have
Absolutely, Brian. I'm sorry. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, if we get through, yeah, feel free to ask another one once we get through some of these. It'd be appreciated. I just want to make sure we get to them.
There's a couple of questions in the chat we can knock out quick here, Brian.
Okay.
David Swan asked why EGLE is not reviewing the application through the lens of 303, which is our wetlands protection law. He mentions some photographs that were taken that showed periods of standing water in the area where the basin is to be constructed. In short, our staff have reviewed the site both as part of this application and the previous application, and there were wetland delineations conducted for both. In visiting the site and in reviewing those wetland delineations, we don't believe that those areas in question to be wetland, which is why it's not being reviewed under 303. There was a question about, let's see, how does EGLE reconcile differences between experts? And they're asking about how an applicant, and people in support or opposition may all bring different experts and arguments to a project. And how do we reconcile the differences of opinions? I'm going to let Jason, maybe you want to walk through just generally what our review process is under 301 and 303, how you handle the files, or John, how you handle a file when it comes in, and how we work with our programmatic experts in EGLE.
Sure. So just to start, we'll start with 301, which is our regulations dealing with inlands, lakes, and streams. So how it's written in state statute is that EGLE cannot issue a permit if the main focus is making a determination on whether or not the project would have any adverse impacts on riparian rights, which the short version of that is whether or not there are potential impacts to people's abilities to navigate, to moor or dock, especially on the areas where they have riparian rights. The other piece to that is whether or not there might be any adverse impacts to the public trust, which the short version of what the public trust is the public's paramount right for boating, fishing, swimming, activities along those lines, as well as the state's responsibility to protect these resources against pollution or against any sort of any other additional potential destruction. When it comes to wetland regulations, the laws are somewhat different in the fact that the main questions that need to be determined are whether there may be any type of cumulative impacts would be one thing that would be for the overall watershed by potentially loss of wetland. And then there's the need to balance out the public interest for whether a specific project is within the public interest and whether or not there would be any type of feasible and prudent alternatives to impacts. So when we're reviewing these applications, we do have a unit of experts that we work with for analyzing these types of projects. I know with regards to this application, I know that there has been groundwater modeling that has been done for this. We have staff that review that kind of information, things along those lines.
Thanks, Jason and Kyle. I can try to knock some more of these out. Got a question. Why would the previous use of land have any bearing on what ought to happen to it now or in the future? I don't understand why the previous use would then indicate a need for restoration. I don't know if there's anything further that you want to say on that, if that's part of the review.
John might be able to handle that.
I can probably take a stab at that one. I think what maybe they're getting at is the fact that a portion of the property where the boat basin would be was previously impacted. Those impacts were partially restored, I think, sometime before the owner bought the property. Under Part 353, if there's an existing use that either predates the law or is otherwise legal, permitted by EGLE, what have you, you can continue that use or change that use with minimal review from EGLE. You would still need a permit, but the review would be fairly minimal. That's not quite the case here, since the area was partially restored and the building was removed. Most of the infrastructure was removed except for like a parking lot and maybe some graded area, I guess. There is a point to be made there, but it wasn't like all the area was under what we call an existing use prior to this permit application.
All right, thanks, John.
Do you want me to try to take? I think I can take a couple of the others here if you want.
Yeah, if there's anything you would like to answer, yeah, feel free.
Okay, as far as North Shore allowing public access to the marina or other areas of the property, as far as areas of the property, I don't think that's included in the application. If the marina basin was constructed, it would be connected to navigable water. Obviously, anyone could boat in there, take a boat in there, take a canoe in there, what have you. It's public trust water at that point. I don't know what else too much to say about that. Let's see. I did just check, I'm addressing Bonnie's comment about will the proposed boat basin extend south to the South Trail of the state park? If so, how much further is this from the previous boat factory, previous development of the South Trail? It's going to be a little hard to estimate. I did just look at a map and I would estimate it approximately 1,700 feet. I'm probably a little off on that just because I'm measuring off an aerial image and I don't have a super firm grasp on where the old building was here since it's no longer visible on my aerial, but I'd say between, I don't know, 1,500 and 2,000 feet, something like that. It's significant. How many acres were cleared for forest to receive the excavated sand for the laydown area, so-called laydown area? I think Carl would have to address that one. I will note though that the area where they cleared to put some of the sand in was primarily like second growth understory trees, some maples and some sassafras and so on. It was pretty obvious the area had been cleared at some point. Also, EGLE has no authority over that area since it's outside the critical dune area. So I think that's what I have to say on that. I don't know if Carl's on still, if he wants to answer anything on that.
I don't have any specific number on the acreage of what that is over there. No.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, I don't have the acreage in front of me either. Should we try to take this Marcy one? I think I can probably answer that. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Ryan? Okay. Has the state ever permitted the elimination of critical dunes, completely removing and then replacing with river water in order to construct an exclusive private project that violates local and state laws? And if so, was the justification in terms of public trust mandate, protect our land and waters for common good? Okay, so I see that this argument's been made several times, removing the area. If this was to be built, it'd be removing an area, significant area from the critical dune area. It would still be regulated under the statute technically, but it would be no longer dune. I guess I would encourage you to think about it from the standpoint of whenever we permit a permanent use in the critical dunes, we are permitting with the understanding that use is going to be continued in perpetuity in most cases. So if you build a house or a parking lot or a driveway, any of those types of activities, structures especially, that area is still regular under the critical dune statute, but it is effectively most likely not going to function as a dune at all. In this particular case, there is some functionality to a water basin, but of course we know it's somewhat limited, water quality concerns and so forth. Fish would obviously use it, but it is a use, and it is certainly removing it to some degree. We do routinely issue permanent impacts to CDA though.
Yeah, I've got one on here, John, that I think would be good. It's related to the attorney seemed to imply that the sand isn't in a hill, it isn't a dune. Maybe could you talk about the definition that EGLE uses?
Oh yeah,
Project
sure.
affects dunes.
Yeah, there's a lot of these. I hadn't scrolled down that one yet. Okay, so this critical dune law, or part 353 of NARIPA, is all based around so-called dune atlas that was drawn up back in the mid 80s. And that was based on a number of things. They did some studies about areas they were trying to protect and so forth. It certainly does not encompass all of the dune areas that exist from a habitat standpoint, if you're talking about a dune in Michigan, but it encompasses a lot of them. And when they drew that line, it was somewhat open to interpretation, but generally speaking, the department follows that line. And if it's significantly different than topography, we may flex it a little bit because the topography we have now is much better than what they had in the 80s. As far as hill or not, that doesn't really make any difference. It's either you're in the critical dune area or you're not. So the area that is the so-called laydown area where they're going to place the excess sand, that was reviewed at length under the previous application. It is not in the critical dune area. It's well outside of it. So EGLE really doesn't have any authority over it from the standpoint of cutting trees or placing fill or what have you.
All right. Yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, if there's any here you want to address, feel free to answer. I have one on here that might be good while you're looking. So was the Coast Guard consulted in regards to the navigational situation at the mouth? And it's in context, the person heard a lot of information about boats, but several other water vessels navigate this area, specifically kayaking and other self-powered vehicles. And then, so second, who monitors, controls the mouth, area, wake, etc. So, and it sounds
Yeah,
like,
that might be a good question for Carl if he's able to field it. Really, the first part, which was the Coast Guard consulted in regards to the navigational situation at the mouth as it relates to this proposal?
I don't believe the Coast Guard was consulted. I don't know that the Coast Guard deals with navigation. My understanding is the Army Corps of Engineers is the primary federal agency or department that deals with navigable waters that are connected to the waters of the United States. And so they are certainly involved. They are going to, they're the ones, we're in an application with them as well. And so they do consider navigation, the federal navigation channel, and how this would impact navigation in the area.
I
okay,
think that would be my understanding of it as well, Carl. Any kind of concerns at the federal level for boat traffic and so on would be run through the Army Corps.
Mary Hill asked a follow-up question to something that John or Jason mentioned. They asked if the water in the basin would be in the public trust. Would people have access in and out of that? And that is correct. That would be public trust water. So you could, paddle a boat into the basin and out. You could drive a boat in and out as long as you're on the water.
I think I could probably handle some of Mary's other comments real quick too. I appreciate you looking up the acreage, Mary. I didn't remember what it was. I guess it's 5 acres per the application for the laydown area. And yeah, as far as jurisdiction over the laydown area where it was previously cleared, and that's where they plan to put the excess sand. I guess from the standpoint of we have jurisdiction over it because the sand is being removed from a critical dune area. So we want to make sure it's, clean and we're not moving contamination. Those tests have been done extensively already. So we're satisfied with that. As far as placement of the sand in upland area there, they would need to stabilize it, obviously, and that would come soil erosion effects come into play there or regulations. But other than that, we don't really have any authority over it. It is considered upland. It is not in the critical dune area. And I think there was a comment about I got the types of trees in the laydown area wrong. I apologize for that. It was some time ago I walked out there, but I'm sure there were some larger ones as well.
Dave Swan had a question about different reports and studies that were done and asked if EGLE would take those into considerations. We certainly, any reports, studies, analyses that are provided to us during the public notice period or after this public hearing, we will review, and to the extent that they're relevant to the statutes that we're reviewing the project under, we certainly will consider those.
Do we want to address the comment or question from Tracy? I'm not quite sure what she's referring to there, so I don't really have an answer on it.
I think that'd be a better one for them to handle directly afterwards.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so here's one that might be good. The applicant stated during the presentation that North Shore hired someone to review the entire area for cultural resources. Did the applicant mean to say historical rather than cultural? It's a very important distinction. Maybe Carl can talk a little bit about I don't know what was referred to, or go more specifics.
Yes, thanks. I am going to try and find that report and share the name of it. It is in our supplemental documentation provided to as part of the application. And I'm trying to indicate exactly where it is. Okay, so it is labeled as the Historical Survey Report, University of Illinois, May of 2017. And the title of the report is Cultural Resources and Land Use History Background Report on an approximately 300-acre parcel located in Saugatuck Township, Allegan County. And it's dated May of 2017. Rather than try and get into a discussion of what the differences are or what it is, I guess I would refer anyone that's interested to that report, which is in the submission packet.
Okay, thanks, Carl.
See, I can take the one from, and I apologize when I get your name wrong. I believe that's Kayla Kina asking about North Shore, whether the North Shore has cooperated with the Army Corps about a monitoring program. So one thing to bring up is that for areas like the Kalamazoo River, there is what we call Section 10 waters, where both EGLE and the Army Corps of Engineers review permit applications like these. My understanding is that the Army Corps hasn't made any permitting decisions yet, but I would encourage you to reach out to the Army Corps. I'm certain we could probably find a link or where you could maybe find out more information with the Army Corps' review. Regarding the question about EGLE consulting with federally recognized tribes, we are actually doing that, and we do have a formal consultation scheduled for later this week.
All right, yeah, thanks for answering that one, Jason. Let's see here. There's a question here about, I don't know if you can speak to this or not, the proposed water circulation within the marina where water will be pulled from and pushed to, specifically asking the effects of water diversion within the river mouth that will force the natural ecosystem to be imbalanced. Oh, screen jumped on me. Fish migration impacted and animals in their natural habitat. So what is proposed to ensure there are not negative ramifications to the natural flow of the riverway? So I guess any thoughts?
I'd typically kick that question to the applicant. So if Carl wants to chime in on proposed water circulation within the marina, he can. But John, maybe you can speak just to what's being proposed in the application, at least.
Yeah, they're proposing, so the entire riverbank here existing is essentially seawall, steel sheet pile wall. It's been there for a number of years. The pipe would connect into that wall below a certain depth, so it's essentially always underwater. It would, by natural flow from the river going towards the lake, push waters through it, and the pipe would carry it basically to the far end of the marina or somewhere near the far end. So essentially it's taking river water from the river to the far end of the marina to try to get flow through the marina. Previously, the applicant did supply some information about what they expect as far as velocities in the pipe, and how long they think the basin will take to essentially change its water from, old water to new. And I don't have those numbers in front of me, but we did run this by our fisheries division at MDNR, and they were not concerned with it.
All right, thanks, John. Anything further on that? Not, we'll move on to the next one.
That's about all I got right now.
I was just going to add and ask John, if DNR provides public notice comments on the project, we can, I don't know if they did or not, but if they did, we can make those comments available to anyone who has questions about that.
Certainly.
All right, thanks for that clarification. Question, where can the person find information related to the sand mine at the end of the dugout that the applicant referred to?
I'm not sure that's included in any true documentation of that is included in the application, but I would just refer to my previous comment or statement that this area is not regulated by EGLE.
Yeah, it's really not pertinent to our review. It's not something that we've looked into all that closely. I don't know if Carl has any additional information regarding that dugout, but I'm pretty sure we do not.
No, I think you said it right. That's that's not part of this.
Okay, thank you. And there's a, correct me if this has been answered, Mary, who has authority? Can you provide, if that hasn't been answered, can you provide some clarification with what you're asking? And then this is in follow-up, I think, to just a present or last statement. How can deposition of the sand mine removed for the development not be considered by EGLE? I don't know, is there anything?
Yeah, to the extent that this is pertaining to 637 or sand dune mining, again, I would encourage you to reach out to Oil, Gas and Minerals Division if you have questions about their permitting. We are only reviewing this application under 301, 353. As far as we know, sand is being moved from the site to another location on the site. But that is outside the scope of our review, or everyone on this call, it's outside of our review.
All right, here's another one. What's the, this is related to the project, what's the proposed length of time for the basin excavation to be trucked to the laydown area?
Like, how long is it going to take to move all the sand, or how long does it take each truck to get there? I'm not sure what she's asking, I guess.
By the wording, I'm assuming it's length of time for, like, how long will the period of time be that it'll take to complete it? But again, if you ask that question, feel free to provide clarification. How long in total, she says. So the question is, how long in total will it take
Okay.
the basin?
So the applicant had estimated, I want to say it's 120 days, with maybe 85 of those being working days. Yeah. They're saying they're going to do construction of the Marina Basin in 120 days, with, they're assuming 85 of those will be actual working days. I think that's what she wants to know.
Yeah, I think that's right, John. I think you answered it.
It is a large amount of sand, 230 cubic yards, approximately 230,000 cubic yards, excuse me. That is a lot of sand to move.
All right, and then this one is, I'm not sure, that is very specific. Maybe Carl can, why does the culture report the applicant references predate the ethnographic report prepared by the tribal nations, and why was it not updated to the ethnographic report? I'm not sure if there's anything, is there anything you can speak on that, Carl, or are you familiar with that report?
I don't have the ethnographic report in front of me, so I don't know that I can speak to that at all.
Let's see here. So next question, if the stakeholders have to work through Oil and Gas Division related to the sand deposition, can additional time be provided and contacts at Oil and Gas also be provided?
Again, we all work for the Water Resource Division, so we're reviewing this under 353, which is the Critical Dune Act, and 301, our Inland Lakes and Streams Law. That's what the application that we're here to discuss tonight pertains to.
I will say we do have a contact list for oil, gas, and minerals that's on the EGLE website, so you should be able to find it there, or potentially.
Sure, and the folks over in that division, they're very familiar with this project. I'm sure if we put some contact information up, they'd be happy to talk with any number of you about the site.
Yeah, I would just add, Kyle, that they have made a determination on the previous project and it hasn't really changed.
Yes, that's right. Thanks, John.
And I'm sure so we have a contact list, or I'm sure if you contact the district office directly, they can direct you to whoever covers this area for.
Yeah, that's right. Right. I was just going to tackle an easy one here. Shannon asks about what the consultation with the tribal nations scheduled for later this week will consist of. Anytime we have a project that the tribes have reached out to us and expressed interest in, we will engage in formal consultation, and that can, there's no There's no real set agenda for that. It's kind of a Q&A open discussion that we'll be having on Friday. So I don't know that I can answer that in any more detail other than to say that we do have formal consultations scheduled for this Friday.
All right, thanks, Carl. Let's see here.
There's a lot of questions, still a lot of questions about this sand dune mining. I don't think we can't answer those.
I think we touched on many of these. I guess I'm trying to find one maybe we haven't touched on yet.
Looks like Nicholas wants that question we've already kind of addressed, dealt with by the applicant, but if they choose not to, they don't have to.
Gotcha. It looks like Mary is raising her hand. So we've gone through quite a few of these written questions. Looks like Mary lowered her hand. All right. Let's see. I think there's a couple more coming in.
I think we could try to answer Suzanne's there at the end.
All right, have the DNR and USFW, I'm assuming U.S. Fish and Wildlife, evaluated the intake pipe and recirculating system to assure safety to sturgeon fingerlings?
I can't say for sure that we received updated MDNR comments on this one yet. I did talk to the biologist for our area recently, and I think he was going to wait to provide his final comments from the DNR standpoint until after the public hearing tonight. We will be soliciting, certainly getting their information or what they want to see. Obviously, that has been reviewed previously under the earlier application that was permitted. I can't speak to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, whether they reviewed it or not. We did notify them.
All right, thanks, John.
Oh, David's saying it would be helpful if the audience could see all the questions. Is there any way for that to happen? Or not so much, Ryan?
I'm wondering if that we can maybe follow up with that afterwards. I'm not sure because people are typing in their question that they would want to show that it's them who are asking the question necessarily. So I'm somewhat hesitant, but I think we'll have to look at that afterwards on what would
Yeah, I think one thing I've done before when we had this many questions on one, a lot of them end up being about similar topics. We'll just try to write a summary of the main topics that people were questioning. It would cover most of them at least.
Okay, and then we had another one that just came in. Does this development extend the length of coastline? Public trust waters? Does this violate an existing statute? I guess the question is if it extends the length of the coastline.
The project is along the Kalamazoo River, so I'm not sure what they mean by coastline. Maybe they can clarify the question. That would be Mary.
I mean, it would increase the amount of area that is public trusts at the mouth of the Kalamazoo River. It would increase, I don't know if I'd want to call it shoreline since it's a steel seawall, but it would increase the length of water's edge in that area. Does it violate an existing statute? I'm not sure what she means by that.
Okay. It looks like we have gotten through, I think, most of these, and the ones that are left, it seems like we've already kind of addressed or have touched on. Is there any that you all see in here that we may have missed? That we should.
David just asked a question of the applicant. He's asking why they sprayed herbicide in the proposed marina area. I don't think that's a question we can answer for the applicant, but Carl, you can certainly address that if you're able to.
No, I don't have any information on that.
Okay. Let's see here. I think we have gotten or touched on all of these that are in here currently, and we're at about time, and we've been going at this a while. So I think we're going to move on. All right, well, one just came in. Can the applicant supply the information? I believe it's related to the previous question. Maybe you could provide some clarification, David, on what information you're looking for.
Yeah, I guess I would just say, David, if you have questions about why the property owner was applying an herbicide, that would be something to ask, to work directly with them on.
Oh, the herbicide, gotcha.
Yep.
All right. All right. So with that, we're going to move on to the next portion of tonight, and some great questions in here. Yeah, thank you all for being part of that Q&A panel and for answering those questions. Hopefully it was helpful for everybody. We're going to begin taking statements here, and this is just kind of a quick welcome. How to make a statement. Click your, and I actually have just had a hand raised. We're going to take, it's not quite 7, so I will take this raised hand. Don Schumann, we're going to unmute you. You can ask your question. You caught us just in time before we moved on. You there, Don? You're unmuted on our end. You can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Dawn Schumann, and I'm a founding board member of the Saugatuck Dunes Coastal Alliance. I've also been a preservation professional for over 40 years, when in 1968, I nominated what became the nation's
Hey, Dawn, are you asking a question, or you want to make a statement?
statement.
Okay, so we haven't gotten to that part yet. We're just getting into it. I'll explain how we're going to go through that. There's a process that we're going to go through. You can raise your hand. I'm sorry, I thought you were asking a question. You will be able to raise your hand, and we're going to get through everybody, but we're first going to give the people who during registration who indicated they want to make a statement first. So if you wouldn't mind holding on to that, we kind of have to go through a procedural opening statement first. So just hold on to that statement, Don. Thanks. All right, so when we get to the appropriate time, this is how you're going to raise your hand. We're going to first get through that list that I just mentioned. And then after we get through that, if you haven't made a statement, you're going to click your hand icon and type #2 to raise your hand if you're on the phone. But before we get to there, one thing I want to make sure you're aware of is that there are some other ways to make a comment. Through My Enviro, at submission number HPF 7A8ARGC7Q. And we're going to put this in the chat so you'll be able to see it. And then, or by mail to EGLE Water Resources Division, Kalamazoo District Office, 7953 Adobe Road, Kalamazoo, Michigan, 49009. Comment period after this public hearing will be open for 10 days. So the public comment period will end on July 20th. So you will, if you don't want to make a statement tonight, I just want to make sure you're aware that there are other ways to make a statement, or if you have more to say on this topic. All right, so with that, and I also want to mention, we'll be showing the slide again in case you missed it towards the end. All right, so now we're gonna kick off with our opening statement, the public hearing. So John, it'd be great if you could read that opening statement for us so we can start taking comments.
Yes, thank you, Ryan. Bear with me, people. This is going to be a little bit long, but we have to go through it all. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Baha. I'm the district representative in the Water Resources Division of the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, or EGLE. I will be serving as the hearings officer for this public hearing on EGLE submission number HPF-7A8A-RGC7Q. With me tonight are other EGLE staff, which we've already introduced ourselves, but they will be assisting me with this hearing. Kyle Alexander, Kalamazoo District Supervisor, and Jason Combs, Environmental Quality Analyst. Our agenda tonight, we will go through how it's going to work a little bit. I will begin with some background information about why we're here tonight. I will then describe the purpose of the hearing and how your comments will be used. Following that, I will outline the procedure under which we will take your comments and then describe what will happen after tonight's hearing. It will then be time for you to provide comments, and we will spend the majority of time tonight listening to those comments. At the end of the hearing, I'll read the closing statement. Little background information. By way of background information, the Water Resources Division is responsible for administering a variety of programs that help protect the inland lakes and streams, wetlands, floodplains, sand dunes or critical dune areas, and the Great Lakes. These programs regulate certain activities such as dredging or filling a lake, stream, or wetland, constructing a dam, constructing a marina, placing shore protection or constructing docks, and building in a designated critical sand dune area, wetland, or floodplain. The law governing these responsibilities in the Natural Resources and Environmental Act 1994 P Act 451 as amended, or Act 451. We are here tonight because Scott Boskrat of North Shores of Saugatuck LLC has proposed the following. Construct a marina basin approximately 6.54 acres in size, lined with approximately 3395 linear feet of steel sheet pile. The steel sheet pile wall will be installed over a period of 15 days using an excavator with a weighted vibrating hammer attachment to the drive and sheet pile into the soil prior to excavation of the basin. Initially, the soil within the basin will be excavated down to the water table, and a qualified archaeologist would monitor excavation in the northeastern part of the basin. A total of 230,000 cubic yards of sand would be excavated from a 6.54 acre upland area. That is 1,639 feet long, up to 200 feet wide, and to a depth of 12 to 14 feet below the low water datum of 577.5 feet IGLD 85. Temporarily leaving a soil plug at the marina basin entrance, the soil below the water table would be excavated in 3 segments, leaving a barrier between the segments. Following the excavation, each segment will be dewatered individually over a period of 36 to 48 hours, while a clay layer 1 foot thick covered with a 1 foot thick layer of sand is installed at the bottom of the basin. During dewatering, some of the pumped water would be diverted to the recharge trench and recharge points outside the basin walls. Groundwater levels outside the basin would be monitored during dewatering, and the artificial recharge would be adjusted based on the observed hydraulic head at the nearby established monitoring wells. Following each dewatering period, no additional dewatering would occur for 30 days to allow the groundwater levels to recover prior to dewatering the next basin segment. During the dewatering of the basin segments, a sediment control log would be placed on the riverbank waterward of the outlet pipe where the pumped water not used for groundwater recharge would pass through a filter bag. Approximately 475 cubic yards of 1 to 2 foot toe stone would be discharged along the toe of the marina basin wall in an area 3,060 feet long, 4 feet wide, and 2 feet high. Approximately 1,850 cubic yards of 3 to 5 foot armor stone would be discharged in an area 345 feet long, 30 feet wide, and 4.5 feet thick. And 820 cubic yards of 8 to 12 inch scour stone would be discharged in an area 120 feet long, 91 feet wide, and 2 feet thick at the marina basin entrance. After all 3 segments are excavated and the clay liner and toe stone are installed, the barriers in the existing steel seawall along the river bank would be removed to connect the new basin to the Kalamazoo River. Approximately 340 linear feet of turbidity current would be installed around the marina basin entrance prior to connecting the basin to the Kalamazoo River. A 3-foot diameter water circulation pipe would be installed immediately landward of the eastern basin wall during the installation of the seawall tiebacks connecting the Kalamazoo River with the northern end of the marina basin. The excavated material would be transported by truck to a laydown area in uplands on the applicant's property located approximately 1,500 feet southeast of the proposed marina basin. The marina would be constructed over a period of approximately 120 days with 85 expected active work days. 12 navigation pilings would be installed within the entrance of the marina basin, an 8-foot by 11-foot gangway platform, a 50-foot by 60-foot gangway ramp, and a floating dock system 615 feet long and 8 feet wide, with 2 access staircases would be installed within the basin. 13 floating finger docks would be installed at the main, on the main dock, 4 40-foot by 4-foot docks, 1 45-foot by 4-foot dock, 4 50-foot by 4-foot docks, 2 60-foot by 5-foot docks, and 2 80-foot by 5-foot docks. 17 spring piles would be installed between and alongside the finger docks at the north end of the marina basin. A 50-foot by 6-foot gangway and 120-foot by 8-foot floating main dock would be installed with 4 40-foot by 4-foot floating finger docks and 3 spring piles. 17 60-foot by 25-foot permanent boat lifts with seasonal covers would be installed along the seawall. 2 6-inch diameter standpipes extending 2 feet waterward of the seawall would be installed within the marina basin. The marina would provide 4 80-foot boat slips, 4 60-foot boat slips, 8 50-foot boat slips, 2 45-foot boat slips, and 15 40-foot boat slips. In addition, 17 60-foot long boat hoists along the shore could accommodate boats approximately 60 feet long. The purpose of the public hearing: in order for a permit to be granted, EGLE must find that the proposed activities described in the public notice meet certain criteria set by Part 31 Water Resources Protection, Part 301 Inland Lakes and Streams, and Part 353 Sand Dune Protection and Management of the Natural Resources and Environmental Act 1994, P Act 451 is amended, or NAREPA. In general, we must consider the effects of the proposed project on the river and the critical dune area. When reviewing an application under permit or for permit under provisions of Part 301 Inland Lakes and Streams and Act 451, EGLE is charged to make the following considerations as required by Section 30106 of Part 301. The department shall issue a permit if it finds that the structure or project will not adversely affect public trust or riparian rights. The department shall not grant a permit if the proposed project or structure will unlawfully impair or destroy any of the waters or natural resources of the state. When reviewing an application for permit under the provisions of Part 353, Sand Dunes Protection and Management of Act 451, EGLE is charged to make the following considerations as required by Section 35304 or Part 353. Subject to Section 353.16, a permit shall be approved unless the local unit of government or department determines that the use will significantly damage the public interest on privately owned land, or if the land is publicly owned, the public interest in the publicly owned land, by significant and unreasonable depletion or degradation of any of the following: the diversity of the critical dune areas within the local unit of government, the quality of the critical dune areas within the local unit of government, the functions of the critical dune areas within the local unit of government. The purpose of tonight's hearings is to give everyone interested in Scott Boscraft's North Shore of Saugatuck New Marina Basin an opportunity to provide information that EGLE can use in making a decision whether or not to issue a permit. Please recognize that EGLE can only use the information you provide if it relates to the criteria that EGLE must use in making a decision. Some of you may simply want to express your support or opposition of the project. We will be happy to note that in your position, but please understand that EGLE is by law not allowed to base our decision on whether or not there is widespread support or opposition for the project. In a moment, I will outline the procedures we will use for taking our comments. But before I do so, I need to mention that the notice for this hearing was published in the commercial record on June 29th, 2023. As we discussed at the beginning of the informational session, if you have a comment to provide, raise your hand in the Zoom toolbar at the bottom of your screen. To ensure that the hearing is conducted in a fair manner, we will follow these steps. First, the applicant and or their consultant has already had an opportunity to describe the proposed project. Second, we will then call on those that have indicated in their registration that they would like to speak. After that, we will call on all those that raise their hand in their Zoom toolbar that they would like to make a comment if they haven't already been called upon. As a reminder, if you are participating in this hearing by telephone today, follow the directions of the moderator, or Ryan in this case, on how to identify that you would like to make a comment. You may also submit your comments to EGLE via My Enviro portal, email, or US mail. When all comments have been completed, we will ask if anyone else would like to make a statement. When your name is called, your microphone will be unmuted. As you begin your comments, please state your name and any group or association that you may represent. Each person will be given 3 minutes to make comments. We will indicate the time or indicate to you when you have a minute left. Please begin wrapping up your comments and within the allotted time. If need be, we will indicate when your time is ended. I would ask that we all be courteous and respectful to one another tonight. Please also recognize that EGLE staff is here tonight to provide a fair opportunity for you to express your comments on the proposed project and to listen to those comments. This hearing is being recorded and your comments will be part of the information that EGLE will consider in making its decision on whether or not to issue a permit on the proposed project. The public comment period for this public hearing is open for 10 days from the date of the hearing or July 20th, 2023. Additional information and comments submitted in writing during the 10-day public comment period will also be considered in EGLE's decision. Following the close of the public comment period, EGLE will make a decision on to either issue a permit for the project as proposed or with modifications or send a letter of denial. You may find out what the decision is by checking the EGLE My Enviro web portal site and searching for the application number HPF-7A8AA. Or I'm sorry, 8A-RGC7Q. Thank you for your attention. We will begin calling the names of those who have indicated they would like to make a statement.
Yeah, thanks for reading that, John. Yeah, as John mentioned, I have a list of 23 names of people during registration who indicated they want to make a comment. Calling them in order of registration and call the person's name. Then we'll unmute you. You can make your comment. And again, as John mentioned, you have 3 minutes. I'll give you a heads up when you have a minute left. I'll also mention the person who's next so that you just have an idea of when you're coming up. Once I get through this list of names, if you didn't indicate during registration that you wanted to make a comment, but still want to make one, again, you can raise your hand with the hand icon at the bottom of your screen. If you're on the phone, there'll be an opportunity for you to make a comment too. Just select #2 on your receiver, and that'll raise your hand in Zoom, and we'll call on you using your phone, like your last 4 digits of your phone number, so that you can make a comment. All right, there'll also be 1 comment per person to give everybody a fair and equal chance to make their comment. If you're on the line and you have a second person on the line who wants to make a separate comment, just let me know and they can make their comment as well. And they will also receive 3 minutes. So with that, the first person on the list I have is Holly Anderson. So Holly, we're going to unmute you. Looks like you're unmuted. You can begin when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. My name is Holly Anderson. I'm a Saugatuck resident and a member of the board of the Saugatuck Dunes Coastal Alliance. The concept of public trust dates back to the Roman Empire and has been part of English common law and U.S. jurisprudence for centuries. It's the legal principle that certain natural and cultural resources are preserved for public use, and that the government is required to maintain them for the public's benefit. I recognize that the applicant wants to build a marina for the benefit of the homeowners in their private development, but that plan violates the public trust. It violates Michigan's Critical Dunes Act and Michigan's Inland Lakes and Streams Act. It would carve through and destroy nearly 7 acres of critical dunes, a prized natural resource of the Western Michigan shoreline. It would introduce yacht traffic to an already clogged river mouth, interfering with the rights of everyday Michiganders and tourists to safely navigate and use our lakes and streams. It would damage the site of Singapore, which is our history. The tribal nations can detail the damage that their cultural resources when you meet with them later this week. EGLE's team includes more than 1,300 employees across the state. And while many of you hold different jobs in science, engineering, geology, and running meetings like this, you all share one overriding responsibility to the people of Michigan: to protect our natural and cultural resources for the public's benefit. We are counting on you to uphold the public trust and deny the applicant's permits. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for your comment, Holly. All right, next up is Scott Ardema, and then, or I'm sorry, Robert Ardema, and after Robert is Scott Wieringa. So Robert, we are going to see if we can find you. It looks like you are unmuted on our end. Feel free to unmute your microphone and you can begin your statement when you're ready. And to unmute, you should see a microphone icon on the bottom of your screen. Just select that and that'll unmute you.
I am unmuted.
Yep, we can hear you. You can begin when
Okay,
you're
I
ready.
am. I am Robert Artema. I'm a private citizen who has lived in the area for a long, long time and utilized the natural resource of the Kalamazoo River. The impact on public interest will be immediate with this marina, but that would probably be only the beginning. If it establishes a precedent, there are miles and miles and miles of similar spots where a canal could be dredged and a new marina could go in, and that would have a long-term permanent effect on the on the public interest. So I think in the public interest of myself and future generations, these sorts of developments should not be allowed. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, thanks for making a comment, Robert. All right, so next up is Scott Waringa, and then after Scott is Holly Engel. So Scott, we're gonna find you in the audience and unmute you. It looks like you're unmuted on our end. Feel free to unmute your microphone and begin when you're ready.
Thank you. So my family and I have been very invested in Saugatuck since 2016, when we bought our vacation home right across from Pine Trail Camp, which is just just south of the North Shore property. And it's also on Dugout Road, which there was an inference made earlier that Dugout Road is called Dugout Road because there was a mine there, but the name Dugout Road, as most of the locals know, goes all the way back to Singapore when it was called Old Dug Road, and it was the primary road between Singapore and the Flats, which is now Saugatuck. So just for the record there. We've always enjoyed the natural beauty of the Saugatuck area, hiking dunes and the state park, kayaking on the river, hiking the trails in Mount Bald Head Park, or just spending a lazy day on our pontoon boat in the cove. Saugatuck's natural resources are a treasure we enjoy, and we know many others do as well. It's very important to protect the natural resources of Saugatuck. I understand that North Shore of Saugatuck has acquired the property and that it's private property, and as owners, they have certain rights to develop the property. However, as we all know, ownership of property doesn't give us unlimited rights to do anything we please with our property. There are local, state, federal rules that cover a multitude of things, from how tall buildings can be, what types of landscaping you can have, and whether you can add or remove wetlands, etc. The North Shore property is covered by the Inland Lakes and Streams Act and the Critical Dunes Act. Issuing permits for the proposed marina would be a violation of these acts and would violate the trust that the public puts in EGLE to protect our land and waters and dunes for the common good. A marina at this site would destroy the historic site of Singapore. It would also create a boating hazard at the location on the river that has already heavy boat traffic. We're just
one minute left, Scott.
Okay. We were just out there this weekend and it was nonstop traffic east and west, and trying to make a left turn on a big yacht into the marina. I can't imagine that. It seems dangerous to me. Excavating 6.5 acres of dune from that location, even though they have all the studies, I still believe it would affect the groundwater in the imperiled interdunal wetlands. It is almost certain that it will have foreseen and unforeseen negative impacts, including negatively affecting the spawning grounds for the lake sturgeon. Again, I would ask you to deny the permit and just follow through with your obligation to protect the land and waters for the common good. Thank you.
Thanks for the comment, Scott. All right. So next up is Holly Engel, and after Holly is Doug Terhorst. Holly, we're going to unmute you. It looks like you're unmuted. You can begin when you're ready. After you unmute yourself, looks like you're still muted on your end.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So my name is Holly Engel. I'm a Saugatuck resident and serve on the Saugatuck Harbor Authority. In full transparency, I'm here on a personal note to represent Best Chance Charters in our fishing industry and concerns of the safety navigation within the harbor. So 3 main points: the fishery preservation, safety navigation within the harbor, our safe harbor as a whole for people seeking harbor from the big lake, and our public trust. My main concerns are water diversion within the river mouth, that it will force the natural ecosystem to become imbalanced. Fish migration will be impacted. Animals will be disrupted within their natural habitat. Our fishery combined is over $1 million industry for Saugatuck Township, City of Saugatuck, and Douglas. This goes back generations as we developed Saugatuck upon commercial fishing and now, bring the sport fishery to it. Kind of putting it in perspective, the DNR plants over 100,000 fingerling salmon into the river every year or every other year. These fingerling salmon imprint while they're in their net pens upriver in the Kalamazoo Lake. And then they return to the Kalamazoo Lake to spawn within the next 3 to 4 years. This isn't just from a fishing standpoint. We involve the entire Saugatuck Middle School. There's, sport fishermen, recreational fishermen. It goes as deep as far as teaching them the history of our small town and what we're really about. And water diversion will really impact that as a whole. It also impacts the lake sturgeon, which is a major clan of the Potawatomi Marsh, which is upriver. So not only just the salmon, but fishery as a whole. And as far as safe navigation goes within the harbor, it's always been an issue. This is not something new. The proposed marinas at the mouth of the river, and the slips proposed are mainly 50 to 80 feet long. Putting this in perspective, the Star of Saugatuck is 64 feet. This is already our largest boat in the riverway, and people that come here to visit, to enjoy our tourist town, and whether it's kayaking, canoeing, paddleboarding, whatever it may be.
You have 1 minute
we have
left.
issues. Thanks. Yep. We have issues with our navigation. It impedes the passageway, and these mega yachts are not going to benefit our basic navigation circumstance. So anyway, my ask to you guys as EGLE is please protect our natural resources. Please, keep upholding the master plan for our tri-community. And thank you for your time and consideration.
Yeah, thanks for your comments, Holly. All right. Next up is Doug Turhorst, followed by Laura Judge. So Doug, we're going to find you in the audience.
It doesn't look like Doug is registered or signed in.
Okay, thank you. All right, so up next is Laura Judge, and then after Laura, it'll be Dawn Schumann. So Laura, you see Laura in there, Matt? Yeah, I'm not. Oh, there. All right, we found you, Laura. All right, you're unmuted. You can begin when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. First, let me state that I'm vehemently opposed to EGLE granting a permit to North Shore to excavate a marina at the Kalamazoo River mouth. My family has lived less than a mile away from the project site in Laketown Township for 31 years. Almost every day we walk over the hill to hike in the Saugatuck Dunes State Park and Patty Burkholtz Natural Area. We often walk at the Saugatuck Harbor Natural Area and Talmadge Woods. We kayak and fish on the Kalamazoo River and Lake Goshorn nearby and are emotionally grounded by this place, which provides recreation, solace, serenity, and meaning to our lives. We are forever grateful to the state of Michigan and local government entities for providing these unique and beautiful areas for the common and public good. Along the western Lake Michigan coastline, this particular area is an undisputed gem. People from Lansing, Kalamazoo, Grand Rapids, and nationwide flock to this specific area to hike, unwind, and refresh. For these reasons, development of an excavated and unnatural marina, which violates the local tri-community master plan and undermines the public trust, is unthinkable and unconscionable. Those of us who are intimate with this landscape respect and witness the natural cycles of the globally imperiled interdunal wetlands, which could be forever marred by this project. This project may alter the natural groundwater levels and upset the unique and delicate balance, which should be protected as a global treasure. If EGLE allows this horrendous project to proceed, it will negatively and adversely change the character of the entire river mouth neighborhood, and ruin the views and vistas from both adjacent natural areas.
You have one minute left, Laura.
The auditory intrusion would be significant and disrupt the peaceful nature of the Patty Burkholtz natural area, especially 85 days of sand trucking to begin with. Every time I hike the southern border area of the Patty Burkholtz natural area and gaze toward the Kalamazoo River and Oval Beach, I'm sick to my stomach with the housing development that is underway by North Shore, and how much worse will the noise and area's visual rape by this proposed marina be to our souls. EGLE, I'm counting on you to protect my public trust in this very special dune landscape. You are required to protect our land and waters for the common good, not some developer's get-rich scheme. As a Michigan citizen, don't let me down. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your comment, Laura. Next up is Don Schumann, and after Don is David Swan. So Don, we're going to find you here in the audience. Thanks for your patience. And Don, you're unmuted on our end. Feel free to unmute yourself and begin when you're ready.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, I'll start over. I'm a founding member of the board of Saugatuck Dunes Coastal Alliance. I've also been a preservation professional for over 30 years. I began visiting this area 87 years ago and now own a home and live on the lakeshore. I want to address the applicant's proposed marina will damage the historic site of Singapore, a lumber, milling, and shipbuilding town founded in the 1930s at the river mouth, the site of the proposed marina. To meet demand for lumber in Chicago, the trees that protected Singapore from winds off the lake were clear cut. Over time, with nothing to stop the wind, sand covered and then buried the town. This is an important history lesson for us, and the site of Singapore is an important part of Saugatuck's history, with residents whose ancestors lived in the town. As Michigan State Historic Preservation Office noted in January 2023 letter to the Army Corps of Engineers as part of their permit process, that the site of Singapore is eligible for the National Registry of Historic Places. Designated as a Michigan Historic Site in 1958 by the Michigan Historical Commission and defined by Michigan State Historic Preservation as eligible, Singapore has historic significance to this area. In other words, it's a public interest. The applicant's proposed marina would excavate dunes under which the town is buried, an excavation that is projected to at least significantly damage and possibly destroy our local historic site. The Critical Dunes Act states that a permit shall be approved unless the unit of government of the department or the department determines that the use will significantly damage public interest in the privately owned land.
You have one minute left, Don.
There is no question that the proposed marina would damage the public interest that began more than a century ago. EGLE is obligated to uphold the public trust and to enforce the Critical Dune Act. Therefore, EGLE is required to deny the applicant's permit. Please, we are counting on you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your comment, Dawn. All right, next up is David Swan, and then after David will be Scott Howard. All right, so David, you're unmuted on our end. Feel free to unmute yourself and begin when you're ready. And you should see a microphone icon on the bottom of your screen where you can unmute yourself.
Yep, there we go. Thank you very much. Hello, my name is David Swan, and I'm the co-founder and the president of the board of the Saugatuck Dunes Coastal Alliance. This evening, you've heard from our board members, and you will hear from our board members, articulate the many detrimental impacts identified by scientists, historians, tribal nations, citizens, and regulatory agencies, including EGLE and the Army Corps of Engineers, which will accumulate to such a profoundly significant degree that there should remain absolutely no question that the proposed excavation of a marina does not meet the necessary criteria for either a 301 permit, inland lakes and streams, or a 353 permit, critical dunes. For five pretty important reasons. First, it violates the public trust, which is the state's obligation to protect our land and waters for the common good, including recreation, fishing and wildlife, and boating, and our natural resources, including our dunes, trees, and wildlife. It undermines the longstanding public interest in the dunes by permanently erasing 6.5 acres, damaging the site of Singapore, changing the views and character of the entire Rivermouth neighborhood. Three, it significantly alters the groundwater beneath the globally imperiled interdunal wetlands. Lowering the groundwater allows invasive plants to take root in this fragile land. Fourth, it threatens to eradicate the lake sturgeon, a significant clan animal of the Potawatomi. And sixth, it threatens navigational safety. The city of Saugatuck City Council in October of 2022 unanimously passed a 65-point resolution opposing the proposed marina. And here's how they concluded that resolution. The city, as a local agency, having interest over the particular activity, finds that the proposed marina basin is contrary to the public interest. The city finds that the cumulative permanent detrimental impacts of the excavation and construction of the proposed marina basin on property held by the city, adjacent natural areas, and on the tri-community tourist-based economy far outweigh any benefits from the construction of the marina basin. The city therefore finds that the canal is not necessary for the development of the property at issue. The city finds that the tri-community tourist-based economy relies on the preservation of the historical, ecological, and cultural values of the Rivermouth area. And finally, the city finds that the proposed marina basin is contrary to the well-established public and private uses to which the area is suited. For these reasons and the others articulated by the Coastal Alliance this evening, we ask EGLE to deny the permit applications. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for your comments, David. All right, so next up is Scott Howard, and after Scott will be Mary Hill. So Scott, we're going to find you here. Yep, Scott, you're unmuted on our end, and you can begin when you're ready.
Thank you, and good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to provide oral public comment on this project. I want to talk a bit about the standards that govern these types of projects, and I know they were read to us earlier, so I won't go over the exact language, but I wanted to talk about those in the context of North Shore's proposal to dredge approximately 6.5 acres of a critical dune area and convert it to open water and associated marina facility. The Park Department has previously noted that this equates to approximately 2% of the entire critical dune area within Saugatuck Township. The importance of these critical dune areas is set out at the beginning of Part 353, which expressly provides the legislative finding that the critical dune areas of this state are a unique, irreplaceable, and fragile resource that provides significant recreational, economic, scientific, geological, scenic, botanical, educational, agricultural, and ecological benefits to the people of this state and to the people from other states and other countries who visit this resource. When viewed through the lens of this legislative pronouncement, it's hard to believe honestly that we are considering dredging and destruction of over 6.5 acres of a unique, irreplaceable, and fragile resource. Part 301 has similar language, and it was read earlier, but importantly, it states, quote, "The department shall not grant a permit if the proposed project or structure will unlawfully impair or destroy any of the waters or other natural resources of the state." You're going to hear testimony from experts and lay people about the significant impact of the project will have on recreation, fish, and wildlife and aesthetics. You'll hear from birders, wildlife enthusiasts, and people who recreate in the area. Sturgeon restoration.
1 minute left, Scott.
Thanks. Boaters and neighboring riparian property owners. All of these voices are significant and relate to these standards within Part 301. Lastly, I want to spend a bit more time on the construction plans of the water drawdown. There are significant concerns about the construction, sequencing, dewatering, and the artificial recharge system and overall feasibility to implement the project. Hydrological studies over the past years have indicated that the water drawdown during construction could have a significant and lasting effect on the interdunal wetlands. And importantly, North Shore has not presented you with sufficient detailed information to fully evaluate their proposed dewatering and artificial recharge plans. Such information is necessary and would enable EGLE to ascertain the potential impacts under Part 301, excuse me. Until you have that, this
Scott, you're at time, so please wrap your comments up.
this permit can't be given to the applicant. Thank you for the time again, and we appreciate your attention.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. All right, next up is Mary Hill, and then after Mary is Susan Crisis. So Mary, we're going to find you in the audience. Yep, you can begin when you're ready. It looks like you're unmuted.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity. Okay, so I'm still going to go back to that disposal because I think it really requires EGLE to consider it by its 353 permitting jurisdiction. So I got in the comment I'm going to present that I'm going to submit, I'll present all these numbers, but the only one I'm going to present here is that over this 5 acres to accommodate the sand that's going to be excavated will require a depth of sand to be placed on all 5 acres, every square foot of it, of 29 feet of height. To avoid erosion offsite, the sides would actually probably need to be sloped in, or there would have to be a very large hole. Anyway, okay, so if it was flat, they would have to be sloped in. That means the maximum height would be much taller than 29 feet. The applicant suggests that they will be filling an existing area where sand had been removed. This indicates that the area is a topographic depression, but no proof of such depression or volume of such depression in the area in which the vegetation has been removed has been presented. Given that at least 29 feet height of the laid down sand occurs, there's a distinct possibility and probability actually that this sand will erode and move and adversely affect the dune environment in this area. And in this circumstance,
1 minute left, Mary.
And in that circumstance, that's where the 353 permitting authority really from EGLE needs to be considered and would be appropriate for the sand disposal in this area. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. Next up is Susan Crisis, followed by Bobby Gaunt. And Susan, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. We're going to find you in the audience here, and you're unmuted on our end. Yep, you can unmuted. You can begin when you're ready.
My name is Susan Crisis, and I have been a resident of Douglas for more than 30 years and a boater along the Kalamazoo River channel for more than 30 years. It is my strong opinion that the proposed marina basin would create navigation hazards and create problems for the extensive amount of boating that already does exist along the Kalamazoo River channel and near the mouth going to Lake Michigan. It's a very congested area in the summer months, and adding this proposed marina with substantially larger boats than typically are on the river would create navigation hazards and dangerous conditions. I request that this application be denied. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment, Susan. All right, next up, Bobby Gaunt, and after Bobby is Tracy Shafroth. Bobby, you are unmuted on our end. You can unmute yourself when you're ready. You should see a microphone icon at the bottom of your screen that you can click to unmute yourself.
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Thank you. Yes, my name is Bobby Gaunt, and I chair the board of the Saugatuck Dunes Coastal Alliance. The Alliance believes the proposed marina violates both Michigan's Critical Dunes Act and Michigan's Inland Lakes and Streams Act. And in doing so, betrays the public trust, which, as you know, is the state's obligation to protect our land and waters for the common good. With a deep understanding of the value of public spaces to the quality of life in any community, our local communities have spent decades protecting and preserving the Saugatuck Dunes and the Kalamazoo River mouth areas that are the foundation of the tri-community's economy and of our quality of life. The site of the applicant's proposed marina has great historic, cultural, and ecological significance, and the plans they have submitted to build the proposed marina would cause irreparable harm and damage, violating the public trust. As many have shared with you, the proposed marina would permanently erase nearly 7 acres of critical dunes, which is about the equivalent of 7 football fields. It would damage, if not destroy, the site of Singapore. It will threaten the fragile population of lake sturgeon, the clan animal of the Potawatomi. It would significantly alter the groundwater beneath the globally imperiled interdunal wetlands, creating favorable conditions for invasive plant growth. And it would add significant boat traffic to an already congested river mouth, posing hazards for individual and commercial boaters alike, and flaunting local regulations. In concert with our neighbors, allies, and my fellow board members attending this public hearing this evening, I strongly urge EGLE to deny the applicant's permit as a violation of the Critical Dunes Act and of the Inland Lakes and Streams Act, and as a violation of the public trust. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your comment, Bobby. All right, next up is Tracy Shafroth, and then follow after Tracy is David Moore. So Tracy, looks like you are unmuted on our end. You can begin when you're ready.
Okay. Good evening. I appreciate this opportunity to speak. My name is Tracy Shafroth, and I live in Douglas. I come from a long line of conservationists who for generations have worked and continue to work protecting special places in this country, including the national parks, high peaks in Colorado, and yes, the Saugatuck Dunes. I currently serve as a fellow at the Field Museum's Action Center in Chicago, where our work is focused on saving special places around the globe that harbor remarkable flora and fauna and cultural histories. A few years ago, the museum honored the Gun Lake tribe with a distinguished Parker Gentry Award for their work to protect the environmental and cultural assets of this area, and specifically along the Kalamazoo River. I obviously believe that the Kalamazoo River mouth is one of those special places. The 6.5 acre piece of land that we're focused on this evening is a special and fragile place that deserves our protection and care. It sits smack dab in the middle of a larger and protected sensitive ecosystem containing interdunal wetlands and parabolic dunes. This development will inevitably impact the adjoining parcels and the parcels across the channel. The flora and fauna living in the dunes won't have a chance. The proposed 3,395 feet of steel sheet pile, say that 4 times fast, along the marina walls will ensure that the delicate hydrology at work for millennia in the dunes won't function. The proposed marina and 42 houses will in short wreak havoc. The specific location of the proposed North Shore development will cause an already fraught place on the river to become even more dangerous. The river.
1 minute left, Tracy.
Got it. The river mouth is busy with boats of all shapes and sizes, kayaks, paddleboards, and fisher people. Adding several dozen new huge boats coming and going cannot help but make the river mouth more perilous. And again, it is one of the special places we need to protect because sturgeon spawn right there. We are charged with protecting this increasingly rare habitat. The Kalamazoo River is a public resource, and EGLE is the agency tasked with safeguarding our land and waters for the common good. I don't envy the task before you. Your charge is to protect the place where we live. Please listen to the community of people who call this place home. We are counting on you to protect this land. I thank you for your service to the state and strongly urge you to deny the permit for the North Shore Marina.
Thank you for your comments, Tracy. All right, next up is David Moore, and then after David is Suzanne Dixon. So David, we'll find you in the audience here. Any David, Matt?
No, I just bumped up Suzanne.
All right, I'm not, okay, there we go. All right, Suzanne, you can begin. And then after Suzanne is Dr. Frank Alfieri. So you can begin when you're ready.
Thank you. This is Suzanne Dixon from Douglas. I wanted to say that I wrote the incorporation papers to the state to form the Kalamazoo River Sturgeon for Tomorrow nonprofit. So I have an interest in that group, and there is a federally funded through GLRI money upstream, and I believe that U.S. Fish and Wildlife would be very, I believe that they should be included in the comments on this project since they are invested in this. Also, I think that I would have to agree with most of the callers too about the impacts that this would have on our community. I think we all feel that, between boat traffic and sturgeon and various other things, that we don't feel that this is in our public interest, but that it's serving a private community. And I think should be also evident to the department that this community has worked very actively to create a very natural environment. There are some coastal cities that are more built out, but this isn't St. Joe or any of those. It's, this particular area is selling something very different than that. So please take all that in consideration. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Suzanne. All right, Dr. Frank Alfieri is next, and then after Frank is Catherine Bitke. All right, and looks like Dr. Alfieri, you are unmuted on our end. You can begin when you're ready.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you.
Great. Good evening from the shores and dunes of Lake Michigan. My name is Frank Alfieri. I've practiced for over 42 years in the Saugatuck Township, and I'm a lifelong resident of Allegan County and the past president of the Michigan Lake Michigan Shore Association, and I'm a founding board member and current board member of the Saugatuck Dunes Coastal Alliance. I'd like to submit a few comments. We believe the applicant's proposal to permanently erase nearly 7 acres of critical dune is a violation of the Critical Dunes Act and the public trust. Michigan designates, as you know, and protects critical dunes because they are unique, fragile, and irreplaceable, resource, a resource that makes Michigan a great place to live. And that contributes also to the tourism and our economy. And in Saugatuck, tourism is our economy. In December of 2017, John Baha from the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality wrote to the applicant in response to concerns voiced during the 2017 public comment period. In that letter, Mr. Baha, I hope I'm not slaughtering your name, John, stated that this is a significant conversion of critical dune habitat to another use. That area of the property would no longer function as a dune of any kind, and that the area would not provide any habitat for the flora or fauna found in the critical dunes, end quote. In the Alliance opinion, that statement makes the argument for us better than we can. Mr. Baja's statement illustrated how the proposed marina violates criteria for the inland lakes and streams permit, which stipulates that the department shall not grant a permit if the proposed project or structure will unlawfully impair or destroy any of the waters or other natural resources of the state.
You have 1 minute left.
Okay, in addition to erasing critical dunes, the proposed marina would, as determined by the Army Corps of Engineers, change the essential character of the river mouth by introducing noise, changing and putting view sheds, and significantly altering the groundwater beneath the interdunal wetlands, threatening or maybe even eradicating fragile lake sturgeon populations and destroy habitat for the Michigan endangered prairie warbler. We believe the proposed marina violates state law and violates the public trust, and we are asking that you deny this permit. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Alfieri. Next up is Catherine Bitke, and after Catherine is Larry Dickey. So, Catherine, looks like you're unmuted on our end.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, hi. My name is Catherine Berkey. I'm a member of the board of the Coastal Alliance, and I want to address how the applicant's proposed marina will destroy emerging wetlands. While we recognize EGLE is not requiring a Section 303 Wetlands Act permit, we believe you should, especially given that the wetlands in question are globally imperiled according to Section 303 criteria. On May 26, 2023, Coastal Alliance Board President David Swan sent Kyle Alexander at EGLE's Kalamazoo office photographic documentation of standing water at the marina site spanning several years, a condition that meets the primary criteria of what is considered a wetland that has not yet been delineated. This area had been populated by Austrian pines, which act to dry out emerging wetlands. In preparing the property to excavate the proposed marina, the applicant clear-cut the Austrian pines, which created the condition for wetlands to emerge. The Patty Burkholtz Natural Area, adjacent to the applicant's property, was also populated by Austrian pines, which the DNR removed to allow the wetlands to fully emerge and thrive. The applicant also placed fill in this emerging wetlands area and raked it. This activity, which appears to be an attempt to smother the emerging wetlands, has also been ongoing the past 4 to 5 years. These aren't the only actions the applicant has taken to destroy wetlands. In 2018, the applicant was cited by the U.S. Army Corps for smothering an adjacent wetland area. Finally, to further conceal the emerging wetlands, the applicant sprayed herbicide on the wetlands vegetation in 2022. We strongly urge you to require a Section 303 Wetlands Act permit review. Wetlands play a vital and underappreciated role in our ecology. Wetlands scientist Nicole Stewart and biological sciences professor Dr. Tiffany Shriver
You have 1 minute left, Kathy.
co-authored a paper that appeared in Freshwater Biology documenting, quote, unprecedented anthropogenic habitat loss threatens biodiversity, especially along coastal freshwater coastlines where development, destructive recreation, and invasive species threaten to upset ecological functions critical to maintaining freshwater sources, coastline stability, and fisheries, end quote. This again is an example of our common good, the public trust that EGLE is accountable to uphold by enforcing Michigan's wetland laws to protect these globally imperiled wetlands. We urge you to require a wetlands permit review and to deny the critical dunes and inland lakes and streams permit application. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your comment. All right, next to provide their comment is Larry Dickey, and then after Larry is Mary Lou Graham. So we're going to find you in the audience, Larry. Oh, looks like you are unmuted on our end.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. You can begin when you're ready to go.
Very good. I'm Larry Dickey. I live in Saugatuck Township with my wife, and we've lived here for 43 years and have enjoyed our life along the wetlands of the Kalamazoo all those years. I'm also vice president of the Kalamazoo River Protection Association, and the KRPA and its membership have worked for decades through workshops, field trips, and various advocacy efforts, along with the United States government through the EPA, to restore the Kalamazoo River to some level of health after years of pollution from upstream paper factories and pulp mills. We'd like to see it back to its original pristine state. That probably won't happen, but at least it could become healthy enough for people to eat the fish that they catch in the river. We were pleased that the previous industry was ended and the building taken down. Even so, that boat building industry only produced a few yachts a year, and most of them so large that they left the area. The new marina is going to add multiples of yachts of that size and larger if this is allowed to go forward. We encourage you, EGLE, not to allow this marina. The developer can go ahead and develop many homes in that property, especially along the lakeshore, just like all the rest of the homeowners who enjoy the river without having to have a marina or a special situation for their life on the river. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Larry. All right, Mary Lou Graham, you're up. And then after Mary Lou is Marcia Perry. So Mary Lou Graham, you are unmuted on our end. You just need to click your microphone icon at the bottom of your screen to unmute yourself. And then you can begin when after you do that. All right, Mary Lou, it looks like you're still unmuted. We can come back to you if you're having some audio issues. If you can't get your microphone off or to work, we're also going to show the other ways to submit a comment later on. So we'll give you a second here. We'll come back to you. So after Mary Lou was Marcia Perry, and then we'll come back to Mary Lou and see if we can get her microphone working. All right. So Marcia, it looks like you're unmuted on our end. And you can begin when you're ready.
Thank you. I'm Marcia Perry, and I too was a founding member of the Saugatuck Dunes Coastal Alliance, as well as the Laketown Alliance for Neighborly Development. I currently serve in Laketown Township on the Planning Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals, but I represent myself for this public hearing. Saugatuck's coastal dunelands and the Kalamazoo River mouth have inspired, enchanted, and enriched my life since 1970. My first time cross-country skiing occurred on the critical dune property now under threat of defilement and annihilation. I learned how to sail a boat along the uncrowded river channel. Saugatuck area tourists, attracted by the rare, still natural landscape surrounding this welcoming, eccentric, inclusive little town, provided the jobs that paid for my higher education and have since supported my career as a sculptor, writer, educator, and advocate for trees and the environment. This property, this application, well, they don't belong together. I too am part of the many voices being raised to ask you to deny the application for permitting the destruction of a critical dune area and the replacement and impacts on the Kalamazoo River itself. The history of this particular property for the native peoples, the Potawatomi traditional gatherings, foraging, hunting, and fishing must also be fully respected, marring the face of Mother Earth and risking the lives of vulnerable flora and fauna, the lake sturgeon, merely to appease.
You have 1 minute left, Marcia.
Thank you. Well, like me, citizens of this community care deeply and have invested great effort into planning for its ongoing prosperity. Key to our economic health and quality is maintaining and protecting the shared natural resources of the river and dunes. Decades of research, high levels of public input and interest persist and will prevail. And we need, obviously, the support of laws that are already in place and which are being violated by the claims or the request to dig out a huge portion of absolutely priceless real estate that belongs to the public's interest in an ongoing way. So I urge you to support the public trust and all of the citizens who visit and reside here and enjoy all of the values of this property and the surrounding area, and for our long-term investments in trying to make this available for generations in the future. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments, Marcia. All right, Mary Lou, we're going to go back to you if you're able to unmute yourself. If you decide not to make a comment tonight, I'll also show the other ways to make a comment in case you would like to make a comment. If you're able to get your microphone working later, feel free to raise your hand and we'll come back to you. But it looks like you're unmuted on our end, so it should be working unless you might be having technical issues on your end. But again, there are other ways to make a comment, which we'll show you again. All right, so after Mary Lou is Nicholas Wallace, and then Becky Bruns. And then after Becky, Becky is our last registrant who indicated they want to make a comment. So we'll go to the raised hands, just so you know where we're at kind of in this process. So Nicholas, you can begin when you're ready.
Hi, can y'all hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Hello, my name is Nick Wallace, and I'm a fourth-generation property owner of a historic cabin immediately adjacent to the applicant's property, as well as a board member of the Saugatuck Dunes Coastal Alliance. I grew up fishing the river and hiking these dunes, and still do to this very day. I want to address how the applicant's proposed marina poses significant safety risks for boaters in violation of the Inland Lakes and Streams Act. The proposed marina is designed to dock 50 yachts up to 80 feet long, boats that would enter the river mouth from a single access point. Adding this much traffic to an already congested channel poses a grave threat to public safety. I ask you to envision the mix of boat traffic on the river today on a summer afternoon. Everything from commercial fishing boats, commercial sailboats, Star of Saugatuck, to all the recreational boaters, whether it be kayakers, sailboats, pontoons, conventional boats, or rentals, all operated by people with vastly different levels of experience. For traffic reference, on July 4th, I recorded a time lapse of the cove over an 8-minute span. 72 boats passed in front of the entrance of the proposed marina. I experienced these hazards firsthand 3 summers ago when an approximately 50-foot sailboat heading downriver hit my kayak. I was fishing, maintaining a constant distance with green buoy number 5 immediately upstream of my kayak so that I would be out of the way of boaters. The sailboat proceeded to hit the buoy and the back of my kayak as I paddled out of the way once I realized they weren't changing their course. Fortunately, I wasn't injured, but the threat is very real and likely occurs at least once a year under varying circumstances at different locations along the river. Saugatuck Township, the local jurisdiction for the marina, has addressed safety concerns like these in their code of ordinances, which limit dock capacity and river access. Lack of regulation, the code notes, creates a, quote, nuisance condition and an impairment of irreplaceable natural resources of the township. Further, the lack of regulation is resulting in the destruction of property values and constitutes a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare of all persons utilizing these inland waterways and Lake Michigan and occupying adjacent properties within the township, end quote.
You have one minute, Nick.
The Inland Lakes and Streams Act requires that a marina must not, quote, unreasonably interfere with navigation. On this point alone, EGLE is obligated to deny the permit. Thank you for your time. I urge EGLE to do the right thing and keep West Michigan's last undeveloped river mouth as it currently is, undeveloped and intact. There are 1.5 million other things that I didn't get to cover here, so those will be covered in the more formal written comment period. So thank you for the opportunity to speak. I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. All right, next is Becky Bruns. And Becky is the last on my list of pre-registrants. So Becky, you can begin when you're ready.
Hi, thank you for taking my comments tonight. I don't have written comments prepared, but I can tell you that the river mouth has already been irrevocably ruined for anybody who was familiar with it beforehand. As you walk down to the south from the Patty Burkholtz Natural Area, from the end of the South Trail, you can't help but be shocked with the houses that are there. As far as the marina goes, my point tonight to you is why you would trust anything that the applicant is saying about how they're going to proceed with this, what they intend to do, or how it's going to look. And if you are trusting their designs, their plans for how they're going to dewater, I urge you to be very, very careful. This marina, I don't call it a marina because when I think of a marina, I think of gas docks and provisions and boats coming in and out and being serviced, and none of those things will happen. So I call it a channel, not a marina. And the idea that they would advertise a sensitive conservation approach and then dig a hole the size of the Sears Tower, the Willis Tower, is doesn't compute in my language. So I urge you to deny this permit for this channel in the Kalamazoo River mouth. Thank you.
Sorry. Thanks for your comments, Becky. And now we're going to go to the raised hand. So if you have not made a comment yet and would like to make a comment, please raise your hand, your digital hand in Zoom. You'll see a hand icon at the bottom of your screen. If you're on the phone, if you're calling in by phone, you can also make a comment. Select #2 on your receiver. That'll raise your hand on the screen, and we'll call on you using the last 4 digits of your phone number. And so we're going to go on these in order. So the first person up is Liz Engel. So Liz, we're going to unmute you.
Ryan, I'm having some difficulty and can't see the full attendee list, so I'll need you to unmute her.
Okay, yep, I got her. I just unmuted her. Are you there, Liz?
I am here. I'm actually running the computer for my husband, David Engel, and so he will be commenting now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm David Engel, captain on the Kalamazoo River for the last 44 years. I'm a 3rd generation fisherman in the harbor here in Saugatuck. And I would like to bring to your attention that there will certainly be navigational issues. That's a tight corner when you come downstream. When there's stuff going on in the river, you know, people like to anchor up. It's an anchor area, it's a party area, and very difficult to navigate on the weekends and throughout the summer months. That is for sure going to be a problem, especially when boats are coming and going. As the comment, when you come in from the lake and they want to make a left turn into theirs, it's going to stop everybody and back it up. And it's not like pulling up to a 4-way stop and waiting your turn. You're kind of floating around out there. So it will most certainly be a navigational issue. It will also, it's going to cause problems we've spent a lifetime trying to develop the salmon fishery here on the Kalamazoo. The majority of the fish that we are catching nowadays are natural reproduction. We like to see the fish make it all the way up to the streams where they have a chance to reproduce. That's what keeps our fishery viable here in this area. That will certainly stop the fish and cause problems. The fish will try and spawn in there and there'll be no reproduction whatsoever. So for the public interest and all the obvious comments that's been made prior to this, you need to take this into consideration when making this decision. And thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for your comment. All right, so next up is Jane Dickey and then Tierney Hewitt after Jane. So Jane, we're gonna unmute you. You can now unmute yourself and begin when you're ready.
Okay, I'm Jane Dickey, and I serve on the Saugatuck Township Park Commission, but I speak for myself. I strongly oppose this project and request that EGLE, acting to preserve our treasured Kalamazoo River mouth, deny approval of North Shore Saugatuck's marina permit application, which violates the Michigan Inland Lakes and Streams Act, as well as the Critical Dunes Act. What is the public trust which you are charged to uphold? Let me give you a personal example. I grew up in the 50s and 60s, coming to Saugatuck from inner city Chicago. We came from crowded streets to see for the first time natural lakeshore, trees and dunes, and sparkling Lake Michigan water. The effect it had on me as a child, we now know through decades of research, has the same effect on all people exposed to these beautiful natural areas. Since then, generous, committed citizens worked with government agencies such as EGLE, who serve the public trust, to ensure future generations experience this same awe. We now have Saugatuck Dunes State Park, Oxbow, and the Saugatuck Harbor Natural Area, all surrounding the river and the river mouth. Now comes another threat to the public trust in a proposed marina, crowding 50 large boats in a constricted area of the river mouth with all the noise, congestion, and pollution. Others will write about the impact of the navigational safety, threats to Lake Sturgeon that have been in these waters for eons, and destruction of the rare internodal wetlands, flora and fauna. I write with the urgency of a grandparent who wants my children's children and all children to have access to the beauty of this public trust. I ask that you deny the application for this destructive marina, and thank you so much for your good governmental work.
Thanks for your comments, Jane. All right, next up is Tierney Hewitt, and then followed by Tierney is Matthew Bustler. So, all right, you are unmuted on our end, and you can begin when you're ready.
Hi, my name is Tierney Hewitt. I'm a private citizen. However, my partner is a board member of the Saugatuck Dunes Coastal Alliance. I've been coming to Saugatuck since 2019 due to my partner having a family cottage there. I grew up near Grand Rapids and did not have a lot of access to natural areas like Saugatuck. I have fallen in love with the area, particularly the natural beauty of it. I have heard my partner and his family tell countless stories of growing up in the dunes and seeing the history of Singapore and being fortunate enough to know an untouched and undeveloped river mouth and having that influence them throughout their entire lives. I was not lucky enough to grow up in a lakeshore town, and I desperately want my future children and their future children to have that same opportunity. The natural aspect of Saugatuck has made me more passionate about untouched areas of land and hiking, particularly the Patty Brook natural area. We need to uphold our state's nickname, Pure Michigan, and keep it pure. And more than citizens, EGLE is obligated to keep Michigan pure. And I strongly urge EGLE to deny the permits that the applicant has put forth and listen to the community. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment, Tierney. All right, next up is Matthew Bustler, and then after Matthew is Patty Cardenas. So Matthew, you are unmuted on our end. You can begin when you're ready.
Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Miigwech, thank you. Buju Jayak Ginwa, Matthew Bustler, Indishnakas, Bodwe Wadmi, and Dao Bigagnini Pindaban Douglas, Mishika and Dodem. My name is Matthew Bustler, and I'm the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer for the Pokagon Band of Potawatomi Indians. I just would like to mention that the proposed development project, including the laydown area to develop the marina, exists within the Saugatuck traditional cultural property that has been deemed eligible for listing by the keeper of the National Register of Historic Places in 2020, after the initial EGLE permit was approved in 2017. None of the previous supplemental materials provided by the applicant addressed Potawatomi and Odawa presence in this area, let alone attempt to address the ongoing cultural and religious significance of the area. None of the previous supplemental materials have attempted to be updated to try and include or understand the cultural and historical significance of this area to any community members that have called this place home, whether for decades or thousands of years. Accordingly, the Pokagon Band believes that the project will adversely affect the Kalamazoo River mouth TCP, and the only acceptable measure to avoid the adverse effects is to issue an immediate work stoppage and to deny North Shore's permit application. Miigwech, thank you for your time, and I appreciate your consideration.
Yeah, thanks for your comments, Matthew. All right, next up is Patty Cardenas, and then after Patty is Lakota Hobia. So Patty, you are unmuted on our end.
Oops, I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, there you go. Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate the time. I am an average citizen, but I did purchase a home here on the Kalamazoo River 6 years ago. I think I might have a little bit of a different perspective since I realize I am a newbie, but we visited the areas for years and always loved it. And I'll tell you, for being new to the area, I'm distraught by the changes of the past 2 years. I mean, as others have mentioned, the new homes along the channel make it look like a subdivision that I think we're all kind of trying to come up here to get away from. And we no longer can see the beautiful lake and view when we're going down the channel. I too enjoy walking the dunes and that beautiful area. And like I say, for the people, all the fishermen out there now, they're just staring at a bunch of homes. So additionally, as many have talked about, we also are boaters, and the mouth of the river is, as everyone is mentioning, already very heavy with traffic. This year in particular, some may notice they have cut down on some of the rentals, but it still has heavy boat traffic. And when those rentals are back, I'm sure it will be even worse. And so I can't even imagine what 50 additional boats in that area will bring. And as previously mentioned, when you've got, 60 to 80 foot vessels that need to turn in there, you're definitely going to be stopping people coming down the river, what you kind of refer to as a shipping lane. And if you're not sure what you're doing, I think it's just a disaster waiting to happen. So I just would appreciate, I agree with everyone here, if you cannot approve the permit. I know all the longtime owners as well as new time owners and just all of us who love the area would be very appreciated.
Thank you, Patty. All right, next up is Lakota Hobia, and Lakota is our last raised hand. If anybody else in the line has not made a comment yet and would like to, please raise your hand in Zoom at this time. You'll see it at the bottom of your screen. To raise hand icon, or if you're on the phone, select #2. All right, so with that, Lakota, you're unmuted. You can begin when you're ready.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Great. Bojojai, Ginwa, Lakota Hobai, and Deshnakas, Bodway Mikwayan Dao, Shishi Baniak Nedabin Dagwas, Mang Owen Dodem. Hello, everyone. My name is Lakota Hobai. I serve as the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer for the Machibinashuish Band of Potawatomi Indians, also known as the Gun Lake Tribe. So I am here making general comments as we do have our tribal consultation scheduled with EGLE later this week. But as we have stated in past correspondence with EGLE, the tribe is adamantly opposed to the excavation of the sand and destruction of this environment. Additionally, since the initial first permit, the tribe had undertaken efforts to develop and identify a traditional cultural property, which has culminated in a determination from the keeper of the National Register that this area, this river mouth, is eligible for listing on the National Register. And so as part of that consultation, that will be one of the primary points that will be addressed. Additionally, as has been expressed over the last, 6, 7 years, there are primary concerns about the impact to Lake sturgeon and the other various natural resources to all Potawatomi peoples. Anytime that we visit this area, there are various ways in which you read the landscape and you are able to identify this was a place of cultural and historical significance for us since time immemorial. And so with that, I'll close that, again, we are opposed to this project and that we would support EGLE denying this permit application, and further discussion will occur later this week. Miigwech.
Thank you, Lakota. All right, I have a couple more people with raised hands. Daphne Fairbanks, and then after Daphne will be Linda Salisbury. So Daphne, you are unmuted and can unmute yourself and begin when you're ready.
Hello there, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Unprepared to make a statement, but I wanted to say that I support all of the amazing statements and sound knowledge that has come behind all of them to say that this area is incredibly special. And from my deepest heartfelt place, I can say we cannot replace this. This is something that is not replaceable. And I don't know if that's something that people still hold on to or not. But your responsibility, as I read in your mission, is to protect our environment and public health. And so I really look forward to you hearing what everyone has to say and all the knowledge and wisdom and time and science that's gone behind all of that to protect not only the environment and save the history and protect the waterways and the people that are navigating the waterways in hopefully a safe way, including the fisheries and all the wonderful aspects that have been brought forward tonight. I just want to reiterate my hope that you will deny the application and save what's left of this amazing area. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Daphne. All right. Next is Linda Salisbury, and then after Linda is Dale Harrison. So Linda, you can unmute yourself and begin when you're ready.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. And I really feel I should just hand my mic over to Dale Harrison because he is one of my heroes in natural preservation. But I have to say, I have lived on the Kalamazoo River and Silver Lake in Saugatuck Township for over 30 years. Thank you all at EGLE for this hearing and the wonderful discussion and the public discourse that we're able to have with you. I have worked in federal government for years, and I so appreciate hearing people speaking their minds in a civil discourse manner, and I thank you for that. But I listened tonight. I had not prepared any written statement, but I listened to people who I really respect. Dale, of course, being one who's coming up after me. Dr. Frank Alfieri, Bobby Gaunt, David Swan, Dave and Liz Engel. These are people I've known for over 30 years. And we all love this area, and we all so want to protect this area. We are not against development. We just want to make sure we do it in a proper manner. And I must agree with everyone who's come before me and asked you to deny the marina. I believe it really will damage what we share and have and treasure in this area. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Yeah, thanks for your comments, Linda. All right, Dale Harrison, you are unmuted on our end. You can start your comments when you're ready. All right. And you'll just need to unmute your microphone. There should be a microphone icon at the bottom of your screen that you need to select. Yep, looks like you're unmuted. You can begin when you're ready.
I'm Dale Harrison from the Kalamazoo River Protection Association. We've been involved in this river back into the early 1980s. Anyway, to get to the point of the main focus for me, and I'll provide some written comments before the deadline. It's my belief that the EGLE made its decision in error. They failed to comply with the local ordinance that prohibits any encroachment into the basin to increase waterfront. There is feasible and prudent alternatives. I would like to see an application that complies with that idea, and in as much as there's opportunities for docks and piers on the existing waterfront along the shoreline. This is where that belongs, if anywhere. And I was involved with the planning commission, both in working on that ordinance, and we were very specific about that prohibition. In no way should that be allowed. So I'd like to have you deny this application and have the applicant submit an application consistent with the Saugatuck Township zoning ordinance. And I want to add on how important this is for the public trust. Certainly the local township ordinance has not been adequately considered in this process that began almost a decade ago. And we trust the DEQ to honor our ordinance, our quality of life. And in this instant, it's my belief that it was the preference of the DEQ at that time, now EGLE, of course, that there be a basin. There was not hardly any discussion that I had with any of the members of the staff at that time about seriously considering complying with the Saugatuck Township ordinance and providing for docks and piers consistent with other zoning regulated areas within the township. In fact, the Planning Commission, in its belief and its statement, gave more density for that waterfront. I think it's 1,200 feet, something like that.
You have a minute left, Dale.
I'll try to summarize this and send my comments later. So as we grapple with the public trust and protecting the environment, I just think that you need to address the issues within your own rules and regulations concerning feasible and prudent alternatives, what's being proposed by the applicant. And in that, you will realize the importance of requiring a resubmittal of an application consistent with the zoning of the local township that's consistent with protecting the environment, protecting the dunes, protecting the wetlands, provides adequate safety for navigation, etc. We looked at this extensively in the Planning Commission. I thank you for this opportunity to speak and I hope you move in the right direction this time. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the comments, Dale. All right, is there anybody on the line who has not yet made a comment, who would like to make a comment? And again, you can do that by raising your hand in Zoom with the hand icon at the bottom of your screen. If you're on the phone and would like to make a comment, you can select #2. #2 if you're on the phone. All right, looks like we have one more or another one. Everyone have a chance to make a comment. Shannon Stratton, we're going to unmute you and you can unmute yourself and begin when you're ready.
Thanks. Thanks. I believe I've unmuted. I just want to say that I'll submit a more eloquent and composed statement online because I am doing this off the cuff, but I wanted to add my voice to my neighbors and community members gathered today in opposing the proposed application for the reasons all stated today by those neighbors and community members. But I want to add an emphasis on the importance of honoring sites of cultural significance to tribal nations who have already borne too much destruction and devastation to their land and culture. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Shannon. All right, give it a couple more seconds in case anybody else wants to make a comment. If there are no further comments, the next portion of tonight, I'll go through those other ways, or we will go through those other ways to make a comment. In case you didn't want to make one tonight, I wanted to make it in more depth details, and then I'll go through who to contact with further questions. All right, let's see a raised hand. Bonnie Gradanis. So Bonnie, you are unmuted. You can unmute yourself and begin when you're ready.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
I would just like to add to Catherine Berkey's discussion where she gave the facts about the wetlands. And I would like to add personal experience to that. 50, perhaps 60 years ago, my 7 brothers and I would hike up in that area. Early spring and late fall, we had permission from the dune scooters. We could go into that area before they started and after they were done. And I can attest to the fact that there were wetlands in the area where the marina is going to go. It was fascinating for us. We would watch all the little peepers and all the little frogs and all the little pollywogs and wonder where in the world they went when those little ponds went away.
in the summer. I'm still wondering where they went. Now I know where they went with the destruction of that area by the applicant. And I would also like to add to the gun tribe individuals, the Potawatomi, that we found a lot of arrowheads up there at that time. And we also found other artifacts of Native Americans who had been there. My father was a history professor, told us to leave everything the way it was. And so we did, but we were fascinated and wondered about the people who wandered that area before we did. So I would urge you to deny this for the sake of other children, 10 and 15 years old, who found such fascination in that area. And I would love to see those wetlands come back with the little peepers and the little frogs. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bonnie. All right, is there anybody else who'd like to make a comment, either by, raise your hand at the bottom of the screen or select #2 on your receiver. This is kind of going to be the last chance, because we're going to close out the hearing portion and go on with those other two parts of the night with where to make a comment, other ways to make a comment, and then who to contact with additional questions. I'm not seeing any other raised hands. So John, would you like to read the closing statement tonight?
I would, yes. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for your comments and cooperation. We appreciate your interest in the proposed project and that you took the time to be here tonight. As indicated at the beginning of the hearing, you may submit additional written comments until July 20th, 2023. Following the close of the public comment period, we will consider all comments received and make a decision on the proposed project. Just to remind those that still want to submit a comment, comments can be submitted via MyEnviro portal, email, or US mail. The hearing is now closed. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, as John mentioned, you can submit additional comments through MyEnviro, submission number HPF 7A 8A RGC 7Q, or by mail. And I'm going to read this out loud because we have still some people on the phone, I think, in case they want to submit comments by mail, to EGLE Water Resources Division, Kalamazoo District Office, 7953 Adobe Road, that's ADOBE Road, Kalamazoo, Michigan 49009. And after the comment period, after the public hearing, will be open for 10 days, which is July 20th, 2023. If you have additional questions, you can contact John Baha at 269-568-2680 or by email at bayhaj@michigan.gov. And with that, any closing comments tonight, Kyle?
I just want to thank everyone for participating. I know it's a big chunk of time for everyone to take out at the end of their day, but we of course appreciate the participation.
All right, thank you, Kyle, and thanks to all of our panelists and everyone with the great questions and for making your comments. Last thing I have is just a reminder that this was recorded and it will be on our YouTube channel in a couple of days. With that, I hope you all have a great rest of your evening. Good night.